All right, everyone. Let's get going. We've got about 20 odd people on the call right now. We are hoping to have some more people join us as well. Ramzan Mubarak. Good morning. Welcome to all of you. Thank you for taking the time to join us on what is week number 7 of our calls. We have been in the state of lockdown and quarantine, I guess, for a little bit. I know we've got people from different countries joining us. I know we've got people from different industries joining us as well. So I know we've got some new people. We've got some familiar faces. I see some usual names as well. In case you hear the same joke again, please laugh. Good for my self-esteem. So the way we're going to do this call a little bit differently, guys, than what we have done in the past few weeks. We have very special guest with us as well. Sabah Mirza will be on the call with us. She's a Canadian board certified dietitian. So if you have any questions in terms of why why you're gaining weight or losing weight, then she's the person to ask. Can I just check? Can you guys hear me okay? Let me just check if you can hear me okay, please. Is my voice clear to you? All right, Maha, maybe an issue at your end. Seems okay from this side. All right, very good. Let's talk a little bit, guys, of some of the stuff that we've done, we've spoken about in the past. As you know, this is the 7th call of what we're doing. I will put our YouTube channel on there as well. If you, I want to set it privately. Let me just set it again. I am going to put our YouTube channel on there as well if you want to subscribe, because then every recording of what we're doing, we're putting on there for you to review later. So let's get into it today. Now, before we get into today, what I wanted to do again, just to let you know how we do this for some of our new callers. Remember, this is not a webinar, which it doesn't mean that you just sit there and put me on somewhere and just go wash dishes. Now that you will be doing this in Ramadan anyway, but this is an engaging session, which means I need you to participate. I need you to share your thoughts as well. Of course, this topic of nutrition and energy and focus in Ramadan, important to everyone, especially while many of us are working from home. So again, just to let you know, I'll need for you to chat with me, engage with me in this webinar. Before I get into today a little bit, can I have everyone just in the chat box, if you've got the chat box open, can I ask you, on a scale of 1 to 10, how are you guys doing from a stress level perspective? I know we had a workshop on stress maybe 2-3 weeks ago, but just curious, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the highest, 1 being the lowest, can I get people to write in the chat box, how are you guys doing from a stress perspective? How are you guys doing? So Alexandra's here as well. Alexandra, great to see you again. So many familiar faces. 2, Adnan saying no issue at all. Ibrahim saying 6. Amir saying 6. Stress level, Ashi says no issue at all for me. Hawaz saying 4. Hajra saying 6. Maha saying 9. 5, sorry. Sajjad saying 9. Now back to 3 to 4. Interesting, right, guys? So very, very interesting. I've been doing these webinars now for about 6 or 7 weeks. I think I've done about 30 of these webinars. And about 6 weeks ago, when we started this whole coronavirus mess, people would say things like 8 and 9 and uncertainty. I guess human beings are so adaptive, right? We change to our environment, we adapt to where we are, that we quickly learn, that this is maybe our new normal, and this is how we're going to expect to be. So maybe we adapt to where we are now. A fantastic little survey, interesting study that was done at Heathrow Airport, Terminal 5, British Airways, where people were complaining that their bags weren't on time. So as an experiment, they started parking the plane 10 minutes further away. So by the time people got to the baggage belt, their bags were there. They're like, this is great. I love this service, right? Same time. But the perception is when I get there, my bags are there. We are such a product of the environment that we are in. I just want to take a couple of minutes more, guys, to talk to you about some of the things we have done previously. Remember, in one of the sessions, we spoke about change and how many of us are dealing with change right now. I know we've got people from different industries on the call with us. Just quickly, though, can I just have a check? In the chat box, can I have a quick check from you guys? What industries do we have here? What industries do we have represented on our call today? I know we have some finance people on our call today. Can I just have quickly in the chat box, what different industries do we have on the call today? We've got some health services, public education, higher education, public services, healthcare, engineering, finance. Love to hear from others as well. Fantastic. Renewable energy, healthcare, advisory, IT, training and development, education. Fantastic. Lovely to see different industries represented. And when we go later on in our breakout rooms, it'll be very interesting for you to share from a kind of change perspective. What are you guys doing and what are you dealing with in the different industries? You have Numan from automotive as well. So just to remember, we covered this curve. Remember quickly before we get into our conversation with our dietitian, I just wanted to confirm and check with you for those of you who joined us on these calls, for those of you who are joining us now. Remember, every Thursday at 11 a.m. we have these calls, the typical change curve that people go through, right? So they start at shock, right? I can't believe this is happening. Denial, it'll go back to the way it used to be. Paralysis, my life is over. Then they get to anger. Why does this happen to me? Then they get to hurt. Why does this always happen to me? And then they get to acceptance and healing. And then they're on their way back up again on the second side. So remember, this is a typical change curve that people go through. And very interesting, some of the answers you guys gave before of where you are in the change curve. Many people saying, or a stress curve, people saying, well, we've accepted where we are. We've accepted that this is the new normal. And now we're back on the other side, right? So I just wanted to reaffirm that with you guys. We covered that change curve in quite a bit of detail in one of our previous classes. Because we're going to talk about Ramadan, I wanted to talk to you about that energy level discussion we had. I know in one of our webinars, we spoke about energy levels. Remember I said there are 4 levels of energy, right? If you look at the MRI scan of a human baby, kind of between the ages of 0 and 2, the only real energy center they have is right here in the back of their spinal cord here, something called the reptilian brain, where bioenergy is stored. Bioenergy is responsible for keeping you alive and your motion, right? So when you were hungry, you cried. When you were happy, you laughed, right? It kept you alive between the ages of 0 and 2. That's called bioenergy. We had that early on in our life. Some people have high levels of bioenergy, right? So 5 a.m. they're in the gym. Some of you here. Other people barely make it to work, right? Some of you here, right? Because that's just, we're born with different levels of bioenergy, right? And then between the ages of 2 and 6, the only real kind of area of the brain that's developing is the core center of the brain, something called the limbic system, where emotional energy is born, right? Emotional energy. So your ability to deal with highs and lows of life. So for some people, right, the highs are not so high, the lows are not so low, right? They go through up and down in life consistently. For other people, the highs are high and the lows are low, right? When they're high, they're happy. When they're down, my goodness, ya Allah, they're down. So remember, emotional energy is born between the ages of 2 and 6. Crazy thing I want to share with you is most of our fear in life, is also born in these early ages, right? So how important human conditioning is. Then you get to level 3, which is cognitive energy, cognitive intelligence. This is the ability to, kind of math, logic, science. This develops between the ages of 6 and 12 for people, right? 6 and 12, right? Where the neocortex, the frontal lateral lobe, the frontal cortex of the brain develops, right? Where you get cognitive energy. But that's not enough. The highest level of energy, and that's what we're going to talk a little bit about in the spirit of Ramadan, is something called soul energy or spiritual energy or purpose energy, the why you exist, the why are you here? Not here, I mean, why are you on this planet, right? That's the higher level of energy, which comes from purpose. One of the things I wanted to say to you, and I said it in the previous sessions we've had, if you're struggling a little bit with motivation these days, or you're struggling a little bit with keeping yourself engaged as an employee, or if you're a manager of people, I know we've got some business owners on the call with us. We've got a couple of CEOs also. How critical it is in this time to give our people purpose, to link their purpose to something bigger, to elevate their thinking from what they're doing right now to something bigger. Otherwise, they will get lost. If you don't have, remember that I give that example of the janitor at NASA cleaning the floor. Somebody asked him, what are you doing here at NASA? I'm sending a man to the moon, right? So his purpose got aligned with a bigger purpose, That's how people stay engaged. One thing I wanted to mention to you on energy levels, remember these are 4 legs to a table. If one leg is out of balance, the other legs compensate. So if you're not taking care of yourself physically, if you're not staying active, which is what Sabah will speak about in a couple of minutes, then the emotional energy suffers as well. Focus, like cognitive energy, suffers as well. I'm not saying 6-pack. I'm just saying staying physically active, right? Staying active. If you're not taking care of your emotional energy, then your bioenergy suffers as well. So if you're not surrounding yourself with positive people or staying positive, then that, again, impacts your bioenergy as well and your cognitive. Just to check with everyone, in the chat box quickly, on a scale of 1 to 10, how positive are you feeling these days? Can I have a quick check in the chat box with everyone? On a scale of 1 to 10, how high is the level of positivity? A little bit kind of mediocre, a little bit high. How are you guys doing in Ramadan as well? Hajra saying, not with COVID positive. Exactly, thank God. No, we don't want COVID positive. We want you to stay positive, right? Somebody saying 7, 6, 1 to 5, 100%. Zubina saying 8. Hajra, 8. Swings between 5 to 9, depending on what kind of day, what you're doing. Usually after these calls, people feel pretty good. I feel pretty good. And hopefully that'll be the experience today as well. So again, guys, during this call, I'll ask Sabah as well to keep you guys engaged. I want to turn it over to her to talk to you a little bit about the effects of fasting. Just wanted to leave this up with you in terms of the graph of the number of hours people are fasting. In Dubai, UAE, we are doing about 14 and a half hours, I think. In Pakistan, a little bit similar. We've got some people from, Canada, maybe from, you guys have got longer hours. We've got the UK as well. I know we've got a couple of people from UK, so that's tough for you guys, about 19 hours. That's what we're doing in terms of fasting. How does fasting, being in a state of fast impact our stress levels? How does that impact our energy levels, our focus levels? That's the conversation I wanted to have today. So just a little study before I turn it over to Sabah. A recent study, 2012 recent, showed that during the course of Ramadan, most people, I don't know if that's your experience, mine's been a little bit opposite, most people actually end up losing about 1.24 kilos during the course of Ramadan. But look what happens a couple of weeks after Ramadan, right? When we go on a eating binge, right? So that's what happens after Ramadan. So I just want to make sure that after Ramadan, we are not going back to our traditional habits. So here's what I'm going to do, guys. I'm going to turn it over to my colleague and my friend, Sabah Mirza. Sabah is a Canadian board certified dietitian. Let me just mute everyone else. So I want to make sure that Sabah is the only one unmuted. Very good. We've got about 40 odd people on the call. Sabah, good morning. How are you? Assalamu alaikum. Oh, Sabah, we can't hear you. Having an issue here. No, can't hear you either. No. Oh, let's get some technology issues sorted as we bring Sabah out. No, Sabah, I think we're having a lot of, you want to take off the headphone and just speak from your speaker? If that's possible. Very interesting. Don't know if it was my speaker giving you guys issue, but I think people were saying they could hear me well. Let's get, Sabah, if you want to maybe try to do it without your headphones, that seems to be working for me. See if this works for you. If you want to unmute yourself one more time, give it a shot. Go ahead. The moment you unmute yourself, you get a lot of static, okay? So you want to take that off. You want to redial in again. Meanwhile, I'll just have a quick conversation with the people we have here. Yeah, I know we're having some issues, guys, with Sabah's connection. No worries. So while she gets back on again and fixes her audio, let me just quickly tell you guys a little bit about some of the work that Sabah has done with us. Oh, now we can hear you.
Can you hear me, Omar?
Look at that. Fantastic. Good morning. You're muted now.
Okay, good,
Fantastic.
good. I wasn't able to hear you.
Ramadan Mubarak. Assalamu alaikum. Sabah, how are you?
I'm good. How is everybody this morning?
Very well. We've got people. They've got these. They're in their homes. They're close to their fridges. They can see their fridges, but they can't. They should be going there. Let's get you going, Sabah. I've just introduced everyone to Sabah again. Sabah is a Canadian board certified dietitian. She's been working with us on this topic of nutrition and what to eat, what not to eat. Clearly, I am not listening to her, which is not a good thing. But Sabah, about maybe 25 minutes or so over to you.
Okay.
You want to take over, tell us what you're doing in the world of nutrition and what should we be doing, not doing in Ramadan. Over to you.
Yes, thank you. Okay, I will try my best to get through this and try to give you guys the most practical information so that you can start applying it right away and start seeing the benefits right away. So I thank Omar for letting me share my passion with you today, which is nutrition, but also the more sort of general global view of health and wellness, which is why I've thrown up this graph that I'll go through in just a second. Omar was discussing sort of the benefits of fasting, and I'd like to point out that what I'm giving you today, I want to try to carry through some of those benefits beyond Ramadan by using this opportunity, this very unique situation we're in, where we're not only entering Ramadan, but we're entering Ramadan under lockdown, under quarantine situations, to maybe give you a new perspective. A lot of us are struggling with this situation, but I see it also as an opportunity for us to maybe start building some good habits. We're at home. We have a bit more flexibility in some sense. Many of us are working a lot harder than we have been, but we have an opportunity right now to start putting into place some good habits so that once things start to return to normal, we can carry through these benefits and actually boost our health and carry that through, which I think, again, is more important than ever. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that most of us are very interested in safeguarding our health right now. So who here is feeling particularly motivated about getting healthy, especially given the situation? Just a yes or a me. We can't raise our hand, but in the chat box.
Let's see how many people we get interested to get fitter after this Ramadan, interested to come out of this Ramadan a better, fitter version of ourselves.
Healthy.
Look at this. You got some yeses, Sabah.
Lots of yeses.
You're preaching to the choir here. Good.
So my assumptions are correct. Hopefully today I can give you something you can walk away with and start implementing right away. Always good. Excellent. So I'm going to explain this model that I've thrown up here. This is how I like to. I'm always motivated for the first few days and then it all falls down. Yes, I can appreciate that. So this model that I have up here is how I present health to my clients. Like Omar said, it's not just one thing. It's not just nutrition. It's how all of these interplay together. So what I'm showing you here in this model, if we start at the top, is how you fuel yourself. That is extremely important. Next to it, going clockwise, we have how you feel. So this is what's going on between your two ears. So this is what you're thinking, your thoughts, your feelings. And then lastly, we have how you move. Not necessarily just how you exercise, but what you do with your body, how you move your body. And I'm going to go through all of these in detail and start giving you some really practical examples. So if we can go to the next slide, Omar. I'm going to start with how you fuel. We're talking about energy today, and so this will also relate back to energy. Everything I'm talking about here is about not only giving you health, but also giving you the ability to focus and stay motivated at work. So this slide is a bit heavy. I will walk you through it. I think the information on here is very important, so you can always go back and look at it again, but don't feel overwhelmed. I will take you through every single one of these points. And the main message here is just when it comes to choosing foods, choose whole foods. That is one of the most important things, and I'll explain why. So the macronutrients, which is what we're all familiar with, the carbohydrates, also called sugar. Once it's broken down in your body, it turns into sugar. Proteins and fats. These are all very good things that our body needs to produce energy. Energy to get us through our day, for example. The other things our body really needs are also micronutrients. These are your vitamins and minerals. They don't give us any energy per se. So we don't directly derive any energy from them, but they are essential for the little machines in our body that are doing the stuff we need to do every day. Like, for example, our immune system by fighting. These are essential for our body to function properly. So we need to make sure we're getting those too. Other things that we get from food that are not giving us any energy and that are not micronutrients are things like fiber and phytonutrients. These are things that the body doesn't digest, doesn't necessarily get nutrition from, but they have a positive effect in our body. One of them, for example, is antioxidants. Anybody heard of this? Antioxidants, we get them from bright colored vegetables and fruits and certain grains. Basically, these help to reduce the damage that takes place in our body naturally. It's a very natural process.
They help in detoxifying our bodies.
Exactly. Exactly. And it's a normal process that your body creates free radicals. These are things that damage cells. It's just, and your body has ways of reversing that. But sometimes, depending on what our diet is like, what our lifestyle is like, we overwhelm our body and it's not able to keep up with the damage. So eating a good balanced nutrition can help us fight that sort of damage that's taking place on a normal basis. The other very important, yes, the other very important thing is hydration. Does anybody know how much of our body is fluid, is water? I'm just gonna keep an eye on the chat box. If you have an idea, just throw it up there. 70%, 80, oh, 85 is a bit high, 70%, more than 70. So yes, it's about 60%. It changes as we get older. It goes down. When we're younger, it's closer to 70%. And if you're an athlete, if you have more muscle mass, it'll be a bit higher. But yeah, it's roughly 60%. So all of your cells are surrounded by fluid, liquid. So water is so important, When I teach, when I speak to athletes and I talk about sports nutrition, the biggest ergogenic aid, which is like your performance sort of drug, I tell them is water. Water is so important. We are now heading into Ramadan, so a lot of us are fasting. For how many hours were we in UAE when you said 14 on that graph?
Yeah, 14 and a half, yeah.
14 and a half hours. We are also heading into the summer months right now, so it's getting hot environmentally. The air is getting much hotter. Our ACs are working harder. They're going to dry out the air. We will be losing water throughout the day. So hydration is going to be extremely important. Once you're dehydrated, it can take up to 24 hours to rehydrate. So I'm going to talk about this in the next slide when I talk about suhoor and iftar and what to focus on. But just keep that in mind. If we don't prioritize hydration, it can take up to 24 hours for us to get back to a normal level of hydration. I have a little picture up here, and I explain why whole foods are more desirable, why we want to eat whole foods versus processed foods. When you process foods, and I've given the example of sugar up here, and I'll talk about it a bit more, you remove these nutrients that I talked about here, the micronutrients and the other non-nutrition nutrients like fiber and phytonutrients. You either remove them or you destroy them. They also end up becoming very energy dense. So you still have the macronutrients, but you have none of the other good stuff that you want to get out of food. And then you also have to keep stuff on the shelf, you have to add preservatives. And salt, sugar, and fat are all ways to preserve food. And so they end up being very high in either salt, sugar, fat, or all three. And they end up having very little nutrition. During Ramadan, we are only eating 2 meals. So we're losing an entire meal for most of us. So we want to make the most of our eating opportunities to make sure we're fueling our bodies well, that it's getting all the nutrition it needs in order to then, 1, maintain our health, and 2, maintain our energy levels. I just gave an example here. Does anybody know what white sugar, the typical table white sugar, looks like in real life before it's turned into white sugar?
Brown, isn't it? It's brown. When sugar is brown and they make it white, no, something like that?
Yeah, they bleach it, so that's the last step. They bleach it and they make it white. But even before that, if you were to walk in nature and look for this sugar, what does it look like? If you want to look for the original thing in nature that it came from.
It comes from sugar cane, so it is brown in color, not white.
Exactly.
White is chemically treated.
Exactly, and it's like sugar cane. So I have a picture up here that you can see. It looks like a bamboo shoot. Imagine Imagine chewing on that. How much of that bamboo shoot do you think you can eat? It's full of fiber and threads, and it's sweet. Yes, the juice is sweet, but it's very fibrous. In nature, you would never be able to eat the amount of sugar that you would get, let's say in a teaspoon of refined sugar. You would never be able to eat that much in the sugar cane. You would stop because there's just too much fiber and whatnot. So it's just to give a very real practical example to visualize how much food gets changed and how we lose a lot of the nutrients and the good things that we want to get out of that food. All right, we'll go to the next slide and talk about
there's a question from Sajjad saying 1.5 to 2 liters. Is that a normal requirement to keep yourself hydrated? And if we take that within a period of 6 to 8 hours in a day, is that enough? The hours that we're kind of eating or able to eat.
So there's different sort of equations that you can use to calculate. The general is 2 liters. For men, you're eating, another really easy sort of calculation, easy for me maybe because I calculate people's energy requirements, is about 1 milliliter per calorie that you're eating. So most men are probably eating closer to 2,500 calories depending on how big you are or size, 3,000. So usually 2.5 liters, 3 liters would be closer for the men. For the women, we're probably eating around 2. So yeah, 1.8 to 2 liters for women would be fine, would be more likely.
Go ahead, Sama.
One way, because we're all different, we have different body compositions. So one really good way to tell if you're well hydrated is the color of your pee. So when you go to the bathroom, have a look. If it's really yellow, even if it's just bright yellow, you are dehydrated. Now do note if you're taking medications or vitamins, it'll change the color a little bit. So that might skew your results. But otherwise, that's a very good way of telling how hydrated you are and if you need to hydrate more.
Thank you. Just wanted to ask, I know in Ramadan we have restrictions like we cannot, while we are fasting, we cannot drink water. But generally when I'm in office, let's say from 9 to 6 or 8 to 5, let's say,
yes.
That's in a normal day, that's the time when I'm drinking the water at most. And when I come back home, I do not. So there's a lot of gap between when I'm taking my 2-liter requirement and then till, let's say 7 till in the morning, I'm not drinking any water. Literally, I'm drinking very less water. So just wanted to find that out because at office, it's much easier for me. Someone would come and put a glass of water on my table. But when I come back home, I get lazy. So just wanted to ask with regards to that.
So actually, that's a very good point. And it's the first point on this next slide. Your body can't store water. So you can't really say, I'm going to take all my water in the first few hours of the day or the last few hours of the day, because your body needs it throughout the day. And it won't be able to hold, it can store it to a very small extent, but not really. So you need to keep hydrating throughout the day. A very good example is when you water the lawn, let's say. Have you ever seen sprinklers, for example? You don't just dump all the water on the lawn and then leave it. It gets drowned in the water. It actually kills the grass. But if you sprinkle the same amount of water slowly on the grass, it gives it time to absorb it and then to continue to absorb it and use the water versus drowning in it. It's the same thing with yourself. Think of you wanting to sprinkle your body with water. So you're drinking a little bit all throughout the day. That's ideally how you want to do it. If you drink, let's say your 2 liters all in a few hours, let's say 4 hours, 8 hours, your body will just pee out what it doesn't need in that moment. But that doesn't mean it won't need it later. Does that make sense?
So drinking nothing from iftar till suhoor and then going ballistic at suhoor is not the way to go. You just almost gotta in that time pace it out and hopefully keep it till we have iftar.
Exactly. So
also,
even if
I'm very interested to find out. And you were on that call the other day, and then after that I was thinking, I said I forgot to ask her. Very interested to hear, because I know we've got people from all over the world, really. Interesting to know, what foods would you recommend at sahur and at iftar? That's a critical bit.
That's perfect. You're leading me into this next slide. So your sort of goal for the day at sahur, and I put it on the top right side here, is to fuel for the day. You want to make sure you're hydrated, and you want to make sure that you have a sustained energy source. At some point after 14.5 hours, you will run out of energy. You'll start to go down. You're going to start to feel it quite a bit in the last few hours. But we want to stretch that first meal as far and as long as we can. So for sahur, we start by ensuring that we're adequately hydrated, that we've drank enough water, as much as we can in that moment, to be hydrated. Of course, we will get dehydrated towards the end of the day, but at least we're not starting in the negative. We're not starting at a deficit. So glasses of water, as many as you need, maybe one as soon as you wake up, one with your meal, one before you close your fast. Consume balanced meals. So this is extremely important. So at suhoor is not the time to eat the sweets or whatnot. This is the time to eat really good, hearty, complex carbohydrates, healthy fats, and lean proteins. And I've given examples of these in the boxes at the bottom. And I'll talk about them a bit more because I think somebody asked what are healthy fats. So Taswir, if you look on the bottom right box, I have examples of some healthy fats there. And so basically what this does, eating fats, eating complex carbohydrates, and eating proteins, is it slows the rate at which the energy is released into your blood. It slows down your digestion. It stays in your stomach longer. It stays in all of your digestive tract longer. And then the actual release of the sugars into your blood are slower. So this means that you're going to avoid that sort of crash that you get after, let's say, when you eat a chocolate bar when you're really hungry, or you eat candy when you're really hungry. You feel good for maybe 30 minutes, and then you crash. Somebody just asked if they can screenshot this page. I think it'll be available on the YouTube channel. Omar, correct me if I'm wrong, but feel free.
Absolutely, guys. Go ahead,
Yeah.
take a screenshot. And of course, as I mentioned, I'll just put the YouTube channel here again. Make sure you guys subscribe to this one because all the webinars we do are on this YouTube channel. Go ahead, Saba.
Yeah, do feel free to screenshot though. So complex carbohydrates, what I put down here are some examples. If you Google low GI foods, you'll also find a whole list of complex carbohydrates. And what GI basically means here, that's the graph I put, is how quickly the glucose, the sugar molecules, are released into your blood. So if you see the top line, the red one, high GI foods, they're released very quickly in your blood. And then your blood releases insulin. Your body releases insulin to bring that sugar down, and that's actually what happens when you have a crash. There's an imbalance because there's so much sugar, then there's so much insulin, and then everything comes crashing down, and you feel terrible maybe an hour after eating the food. Whereas if you have a low GI food, so these are complex carbohydrates, these are whole grains like bulgur, quinoa, oats, beans. You have this slow rise and a slow rise of insulin, and then everything leaves your blood slowly. So you feel that energy for much longer and you don't have that crash, which is very important. So if you go ahead and screenshot this page, I've given some examples. You can just search low GI foods and you can find a bunch more online as well.
So Saba, then sahur time, you want to eat the nuts, the avocado, you want to get those proteins in so that they stay now, they basically release energy throughout the day, as opposed to that boom kind of sugary. What about dates, Saba? What about dates?
Dates are very good. You can definitely have dates. I know some people say, oh, dates are very sugary, they're very sweet, and therefore they're not great for you, they're not healthy. Dates are a whole food. So point number one that we talked about, whole foods. Dates are a real unprocessed whole food. They still have their fiber intact, and fiber is one of the things that slows the release of energy as well. And they have a bunch of phytonutrients, so I recommend dates. The only time that dates will become a problem is if that's all you eat, because then you're not getting the healthy fats, you're not getting the proteins that you need to slow down the release of energy. So that's why the keys here are, the first slide I showed you was whole foods, so real whole foods. And the key now here on this slide is mixed meals, balanced. You want to have the fats, the protein, and the complex carbohydrates, all three of them.
Very good. And also just one more thing I can't help but ask. Remember the other day you were talking about how eating too much fiber, it's sahur could be an issue as well, but for energy levels? Fiber, no issue with eating cereal?
No. Fiber is very good because it's also one of the things that slows digestion down in terms of the sugar release. And then once it's done that, it actually helps you stay regular. So fiber is very good. Most of us don't get enough of it. So yes.
Go ahead.
So iftar now. Now we've talked about suhoor, the next meal, iftar. Once again, hydration. You will be dehydrated by this point. So you want to, again, focus on water. So with your date, maybe a glass of water with your meals. And then again, before bed, doesn't hurt to have another one. You might be peeing a lot, but that's okay. That's what we want. Again, you want to consume a balanced meal. So complex carbohydrates, healthy fats, and lean proteins, the same ones we discussed before. So at iftar time, you still want a balanced meal because now you want to replenish those stores that got depleted during the day. So iftar is all about replenishing your hydration, replenishing your stores that got depleted, and replenishing your mind and body. So the other big part of Ramadan traditions are the treats, right? There's a lot of foods around Ramadan, traditional foods that we want to enjoy, and they're not always the most balanced, let's say. So
please don't take away the jalebis. The
I would never.
Jalebi is critical. No life without jalebi. No, I'm kidding.
So I believe in all foods. I believe in all foods. They just in certain amounts and at certain times. That's the important part. Restricting ourselves is not the way to go. It doesn't work. That's why diets always fail. So lifestyle. You want to enjoy those foods in smaller amounts and ideally after you've already replenished yourself with the nutrient-rich foods, the foods that are going to replenish your body, that are going to give you nutrition. So once you've done that, if you want to enjoy a little bit of jalebi, that's okay. And chances are you will not eat as much of those jalebis as you would have if you ate them before the meal. So this way
this was a key thing. I loved it when you said it the other day, Sabah, on the webinar. Again, guys, I will have Sabah put her email address up at the end of this call, so you can reach out to her directly. I've got some people private messaging me some questions as well. So if you need to get her to come and speak to you guys or your companies or whatever, that's perfectly fine. But the other day, Sabah, you were talking about how you can still eat the sweet, but don't eat it at iftar. Kind of, you have your meal and then wait a little bit and then have it. Then it just gets consumed better.
Yes. So there's two things here that are key. Because I'm a dietitian who doesn't like to restrict you. If you want to have a samosa, you want to have a pakora, you want to have a jalebi, I believe you should be able to have it. It is the quantity that's important, and you have to do it in a way that's not compromising your health. It's not taking something away from you. So if you open your fast with the jalebis, you're going to eat, I don't know how many, 6, and you're going to not really eat well afterwards. Whereas if you eat well from the start, you prioritize getting your nutrition in, eating your mixed meal, your balanced meal of whole foods, and you have the sweets after, there's 2 things that work. 1, you will have less because you won't be as full. You won't be having that craving after iftar to just eat anything. So you're not going to eat as much. And 2, you're going to have eaten it after a mixed meal. So we just learned that when we have mixed meals, the release of sugar is slower into your blood. So because you already have that food in your body, this jalebi is going to act differently in your body than if you had it first. That crash that you would normally have because your sugar shoots up and the insulin shoots up is not going to happen in the same way. I'm not saying it's any healthier, but your timing of when you have these things can actually sort of mitigate the negative effects that it can have on your body.
That's the kind of dietitian we all want. The one that says, go ahead, have your jalebi. That's the dietitian I want to work with.
There's a star there. There's a star about when to have it, how to have it, and how much. So somebody talked about samosas and pakoras and our no-go areas in our homes. Fried stuff. So yeah, there's a lot of techniques. If you just apply this technique, it'll make a world of a difference for your nutrition and for your health.
Very good. Let me turn
one more question. So when we open the fast, I know regardless of what the answer will be, I don't know we'll follow it or not, but is there a guideline on how much you can eat right after? No, but scientifically, is it you should eat a lot or you should eat in small quantities? I know generally we always say you need to eat in small quantities, but generally at iftar it gets a little difficult to control. But is there any guideline for that?
You know what? That is an excellent question. And the answer at all times, and somebody here, Muhammad, I believe, said something about mindful eating. And that I can talk to you about for an hour, but I was going to mention it later, and I'm going to make a quick little note to it now. We should always eat mindfully. Our body will tell us what it needs. When it's hungry, you feel hunger. But when you're having a craving, it's not necessarily hunger, it's something different. So at iftar time, when you open your fast and you have your water, you have your date, and you eat your mixed meal of whole foods, if you are still hungry, 20 minutes after eating your food, because there's about a 20-minute lag between when your stomach communicates with your brain communicates back with you. There's about a 20-minute lag. But if you eat slowly and you chew your food, which is also good for digestion, your body will tell you if you need to eat more. And if you're hungry, eat more. Absolutely. There are days that you will be burning more energy than other days. If you're exercising, if you're working extra hard at work, if you're mentally very expending a lot of mental energy, your body will need more calories than it did the day before when it was the weekend and you're watching TV. So your body does not lie. It will tell you if you are hungry. The problem we have is listening to our body. We unlearn how to listen to it. And Ramadan is an excellent opportunity to start relearning how to listen to our body, because we're fasting and we will feel hunger. Now we know what hunger actually feels like versus what emotional eating feels like. Balancing between craving and real hunger is difficult. Yes, Sajid, it is difficult, but Ramadan is an excellent opportunity to relearn what hunger feels like, which a lot of us forget.
And I guess from a pure spiritual perspective, then wouldn't that be the idea, right? For us to kind of differentiate between kind of good to have eating versus eating to survive. It's fantastic.
Absolutely. How many, just out of curiosity, how many of you before Ramadan, but during COVID lockdown, during your workday, would just walk into the kitchen and kind of look aimlessly at the fridge or at food, find yourself just looking for food? You don't know if you're hungry, but you just kind of found yourself wandering into the kitchen. Farat Nami, no? Okay, very good. Very good. Okay, most of you know. Good. Wasn't a lot of emotional eating going on. You're working too hard to even think about food.
Sorry, one more question, maybe a little funny, but is there any link between stress and food? Because whenever I'm stressed, I feel more hungry. Huge
link between stress and food. It's called the mind-gut axis. Your mind and your gut are completely connected. Some people actually, when they're very stressed, depending on the stress, either feel no hunger. Other people, when they're stressed, feel even more hunger. So they end up eating, stress eating, basically is what it's called. I'm going to give you tips for that in the last slide. Omar, I hope I'm not getting too off track with your time, because I would love to.
No, perfectly fine. You've got about 10 minutes to go.
10? Okay. You know what? We will get back to that, and I will address it when I talk about mindful eating in the last slide.
I don't want to give at least 5 minutes at the end for people to ask you questions, because I've got a lot of people asking me questions, and I'm just keeping note of the kind of top 2 or 3. So I want to keep the last 5 minutes for that. Go ahead.
Okay, good. So then we'll address it then. Okay, so this slide here is move. I think this one's important, but I won't spend too much time because I feel this is the one everybody thinks of, right? Physical activity, exercising, right? This is the one everyone's familiar with. Have you all heard, if you don't use it, you lose it? Everyone's heard of that expression. It also relates not just to your strength and your muscle and your cardiovascular strength, but I'm talking about your mobility, your flexibility, and your range of motion. So I know it's going to be hard in Ramadan for some of us to exercise, or at least exercise the way we used to, the way we'd like to. What I'd like to stress here is that even getting up and stretching, getting up from your desk and doing some stretches for 2 minutes will be extremely helpful in maintaining your body's health. Just keeping things moving, keeping your flexibility, your mobility. A lot of us are sitting at our desks all day for more hours than we would normally. We're not getting up and walking to our cars, which isn't a lot of activity, but at least it's a change of position. And I don't know if you've heard, but sitting is the new smoking. It is terrible for us. We are not meant to sit for these many hours a day.
What about sitting and smoking?
That's even worse. It's a compounded effect. So even just getting up and doing some stretches, and there's a few on YouTube for desk work stretches that you can do for your shoulders, your arms. I highly, highly encourage you to at least move your body. That is extremely important. If you do want to do exercise and work out and do more intense activity, I recommend you do it closer to iftar time so that you can break your fast and rehydrate and have that water. And that way it doesn't affect your mental focus throughout the day, and you can do it towards the end. All day on desk or lying down. Exactly. Need to move. So take home from this is that even if you're not doing a hard workout, doing some flexing, some flexibility, doing some stretching will help you. Absolutely. And the last part that I feel so passionate about that nobody talks about in the doctor's office or anywhere that I've been, at least, is how you feel. So you've done the emotional intelligence talks earlier with Omar. I think it was 2 weeks ago. This is so incredibly important for your health. Somebody just asked if there's any link to stress and eating. There is a huge, huge link to stress and to what it does on your body, what it does to your appetite. So our thoughts, what we think leads to emotions, leads to feelings, and those feelings lead to chemical and electrical signals in our body. So uncontrolled stress, Omar has spoken about this, the fight or flight response, that's what it leads to. We know about epinephrine, but the other hormone that's working here is cortisol, and cortisol has so many effects on the body. What we end up seeing is a chronic cortisol release that ends up being insidious to our health, causing all kinds of havoc. The release of cortisol makes us actually insulin resistance, which is the first step towards diabetes. It leads to weight gain, and not just weight gain, it makes the fat, it goes and takes fat from your body and puts it closer to your vital organs. So that's actually the dangerous fat. So even if you're not gaining weight, it has the capability to move the fat you have in your body and put it somewhere where it's a lot more dangerous, and then makes you at risk for other chronic diseases.
And that's because the body's thinking, I need to protect these organs, you know, so trouble is coming, winter is coming, kind of thing.
Yeah, the body is getting sort of a false signal. We're telling the body something that's not actually true. So the body is always working for us. The body is perfect in design. It is trying to keep us alive, but we are feeding it the wrong signal. An email should not create this signal, but it does. That's just a reality. Evolution hasn't caught up to this. But we have to tell our body, we have to give it perspective. Somebody asked about how it affects food. It stimulates your appetite and it stimulates your cravings for high calorie foods. If we were in a dangerous situation, we don't care about the micronutrients right now. We want something that's going to give us lots of energy fast. The fact of the matter is, we're not actually in that situation. We're not going to burn that energy. We don't need that. It also suppresses the immune system, which is something we do not want right now. We want our immune system to be in top shape, always, but especially now. It also leads to GI issues. So related to food, it can lead to indigestion. It can lead to ulcers, IBS, irritable bowel syndrome. This is when there's certain foods that you just don't tolerate anymore. It leads to cardiovascular disease. It can lead to erectile dysfunction, ovulation, fertility problems. And long-term, they're finding links to insomnia, chronic fatigue, something we do not want to be suffering from right now, dementia, and depression. So it's really just a terrible thing for our health. We need to learn to get it under control. So
and just one point I wanted to mention, because we were doing a session the other day with one of our clients on sleep hygiene and sleep management, and especially in Ramadan, you're kind of eating that meal for sahur, going back to sleep. I guess how important and critical what we eat at that meals is, because as we're sleeping or trying to sleep, it's messing with our sleeping habits. It's messing with weight gain. How critical is this?
Very, absolutely. Absolutely. Your feeding opportunities, you want to use them to set yourself up for success, whether that's in terms of focus at work, whether that's in terms of productivity, whether it's in terms of health. And the beautiful thing is that there's only one answer for all of these, and it's the same answer. So what's going to support your focus, your productivity, your replenishment, your good sleep hygiene is the same thing that's going to benefit your health, which is everything that we're discussing today. So the next slide is about tools to manage stress. So I think this is particularly relevant right now, meditation and or prayer. It can be both, it can be one, it could be one or the other. Whichever one you feel helps you detach, helps you forget about work, helps you shut that part of your brain down and just be in the present moment, you need to do that. And prayer, I don't think it's a coincidence that's 5 times a day. We need to do this.
Isn't it some of my apologies to interrupt, because you and I were having that conversation the other day, and it was so interesting because there was a research done, I think about almost 4 or 5 years ago, where they looked at people going into a mosque, into a church, into a meditation center as they walked in, kind of looking at the level of cortisol, and when they walked out. And generally across the board, they found levels of cortisol or stress to be lower as people came out. Now, there's no gym in the mosque or a meditation center. But I guess it's all then about what you've been saying, which is what goes on between the two ears. For a few moments, when you stop thinking about the future, what might happen, or the past, what has happened, and you're in the moment, cortisol levels drop.
Absolutely. And this actually goes into the next point. As soon as you stop thinking about it, the brain is so smart and so powerful, it reacts right away. It says, oh, the danger is gone. You walk into the mosque, you stop thinking about work, your brain's not still thinking about work. It's saying, oh, the danger of work and emails is gone. We can relax now. And immediately you start to see that cortisol level come down. So meditation and or prayer, breathing exercises, also a very good way to immediately stop that cortisol response.
So you got to do that left hand, right hand thing. You got to show them. You got to show all our friends here.
We did an exercise last time. Has anybody heard of belly breathing? And does anybody know how to do it? This is a form of breathing that tells your body, tells your brain that there is no danger. It can calm down. It can stop releasing cortisol, and it works right away. I didn't see any answers, but does anybody want to know how to do it? We could do it right now.
Can we get, so this idea of belly breathing, like mindful breathing, belly breathing, just curious to hear if that's something we've had people come across in the past. Go ahead, Saba, over to you. We'll charge them extra for this. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
I did yoga. Yes, you do that in yoga as well. Absolutely. So belly breathing, we'll do it all together. This is something I encourage you to do several times a day for about 2 minutes, especially if you're feeling stressed. Do it as frequently as you need, but otherwise set a timer, do it every 1 hour, 2 hours. If you're having a very stressful day, do it more. Basically, we're going to go ahead and put our right hand on our chest and our left hand on the belly. Okay? If you take a deep breath in, which hand moved? Was it the right, the left, or both? You can just put it in the comments. Left, okay? Right. Right, left, left. Okay. Right, right, right. So when the right hand moves alone, we're breathing mostly from up here in our diaphragm, our chest. When the left hand moves, we're breathing from our belly. And when both moves, we're doing a bit of both. What we want to do is have only the belly move. So we try that again. We're going to inhale from the nose, a deep, long inhale. Fill your lungs. Hold it for just a second, then exhale as long as you can from your mouth. You can close your eyes if you want to do this, and try only to move the left hand, the one on the belly. Do it for 2 breaths. How does that feel?
Go to sleep here.
Both, actually. So for some of us, better, Hadra says. Excellent. For some of us, we're going to have a bit of trouble. We have to work on it. We have to practice. And this is a skill, absolutely needs practice. So do that. Feel sleepy and hungry, Khalid. Yes. So the feeling sleepy part, it relaxed you. It calms you down. So this is the...
I wanted to ask you something. Look, I got to say, because about 8 years ago, I went to Shanghai, China, and I got certified in mindfulness, right? And in that class, our teacher was teaching us these breathing techniques, exactly like you described, the kind of belly breathing. So it's deeper breathing, exhaling. And, I have to tell you the funny story that I was in this class and they were teaching us to do this, right? I mean, obviously Pakistani, cynical mindset, right? I'm like, all this huggy-feely, touchy stuff doesn't work, right? So I'm doing it. And then all of a sudden I come and my teacher kind of pinches me on my shoulder, right? About 10 minutes in, I'm like, right, that's strange. About 10 minutes pass and he pinches me on my shoulder again. After about half an hour, I was like, all right, everybody, open your eyes. How do you feel? So I feel pretty relaxed, but why did you pinch me on my shoulder? He says, because you were sleeping. I said, I wasn't sleeping. The whole class was laughing. I was snoring. I was gone. I was snoring. And so I didn't believe it. They showed me the video. So I'm gone. Right? So that's that impact of deep breathing and belly breathing. And one thing I'd recommend, and I tried it for at least a couple of weeks or at least a month after I came back. Unfortunately, I stopped. I shouldn't have. Is after Isha, after that evening prayer, kind of lying on the floor even or on the prayer mat where we are, and just kind of practicing the belly breathing. And one more thing linked to that is, you know, how when we're in prayer, guys, for myself and for everyone, I guess, you know, with what they call it khushu in Arabic, which is the ability to stay focused in the moment. You know how when we try to do that, like our mind wanders, right? So we're kind of, you know, already in the kitchen, or we're out playing cricket or something, all right? You know, you kind of almost want to gently release those thoughts and come back to the now. And what happens is when I was doing that regularly, what happened is I would kind of find myself wandering, and I'd let that thought go and come back to the now. If I did that for a couple of weeks, eventually my thoughts wouldn't go. Yeah, I became so much better at it. So I think deep breathing, belly breathing, along with the focus of the mind, my goodness, the sleep was wonderful.
This is a skill. It's absolutely a skill, so you can work on it, and you'll get better at it. And you'll see your focus will improve everywhere, in prayer, at work, at home, in all your relationships. This will help you in every facet of your life, which is, again, why I put up this model. It's a holistic view of health. Omar, if we can go back, if we have time, I'll just run through really quickly through the last things that I had put there.
You do that, Sabah, and after, make sure you put your email address in the chat box, because I know people asking me if they can reach out to you directly.
Yes, I'm sorry if I missed any questions. I tried to keep up with them, but I'll just go really quick.
I got at least 2 questions for you after you finish.
Okay, mindfulness and being present. We can apply this to eating as well as everything else. I think, Omar, you had discussed this. But you can definitely apply this to eating to help with your nutrition. Separating workspace from other activities in the home. This is very, very important to protect how you feel. Putting up some boundaries. Don't work where you're going to eat. Don't bring your food to your desk, to your emails. Keep them separate. You need to do this for your emotional health. It's so important now that we're all working from home. Practicing emotional awareness and regulation. Omar discussed this 2 weeks ago, so you could feel free to rewatch that if you want a bit more information on how to do that, but that will help control your cortisol because it'll control how you feel. Engaging in a hobby, very, very important. Find something that you love doing. It could be exercise, it could be drawing, it could be painting, art, music, dancing. Do it in your home. Just find something that you enjoy doing. Please try to get adequate sleep. I know it's hard, everybody's working harder than ever. But these will help you control your cortisol levels as well. Taking short breaks during the day. I already said take some to stretch and take some to do the breathing exercises. Extremely important. And then reach out to friends and family to connect with them virtually. It's a very isolating time. Some of us are isolating alone. Some of us are with family, but we're still missing the people that we would normally see. So do still try to reach out to them via Skype or Zoom to keep that connection alive. And all of these will help to manage your stress. Okay, and now we can go to the last one. So this slide, just want to throw it back up again to reiterate how you fuel, how you feel, and how you move. These things are going to be so important for your health. And in a time when there's very little that we can control, we feel like things are out of our control, at least these 3 things are completely within our control to some extent. So we can feel empowered to take a stance and to make a change in our health as of today. Thank you, Omar. Let's take those questions.
Fantastic. This is fantastic. Thank you so much for, you just want to go ahead, put your email address in the chat box. So we've got people from around maybe 25 different industries. And of course, you know, feel free to get in touch with Sabah, guys, if you want to personally or for your corporation, for your organization, you know, have any questions. Essentially, Sabah, to wrap up what you've said, and thank you so much for taking the time, spending your precious time with us, the idea of what we eat at Suhoor, how critical that is. You want to get those kind of, what was it, what's the word you used there? The complex
carbohydrates. So these
complex carbs, proteins. You want to get that because then that kind of releases energy throughout the day as opposed to that one big hit that you get. For iftar, it's okay to eat the sweets, but you want to do them after you have kind of that balanced meal so that, you know, again, the digestion of that works like that. I love how you link nutrition to mental health and wellness, and how important that's to stress. And Sajjad, when he asked you about stress eating, you mentioned how it's directly that link between the brain and the gut, and then how linking how when you eat under times of stress, not only do you gain weight, but you're putting weight around those organs, which obviously then relates to those, you know, health-related issues that we all know. So what I'm going to do, Sabah, is, again, guys, some of you who asking me, this will be on YouTube as well, these slides, along with Sabah's information. A question I got, Sabah, I got 2 questions, and then if anybody else has any questions, we'll turn it over to them. I got a question around to kind of split that iftar meal into 2. So what if we do kind of a smaller meal, give them an hour, and then eat the bigger meal? Does that help at all to get the digestion going before you eat the big thing? That's what I always thought.
Yeah, it's actually, I think what would be more pertinent with splitting the meal is to not overeat. Our cortisol levels at that point will be higher just because it's the end of the day and we've stressed out and we're craving food. We're also starving, so our brain is sending our body signals to eat something full of energy because it doesn't know when the next meal is going to come. So you know better. Eating a smaller meal could be a good strategy if you find that you overeat. Somebody said that in the chat box, that they find they eat too much at iftar time. So splitting it up actually into a small meal to calm the nerves, to calm the body, get some food in, and then another meal afterwards, maybe an hour later when you can actually feel how hungry you are and how much food your body needs. That's an excellent sort of strategy to control that type of issue, to mitigate it. If you find that you can eat slowly enough, because that's another thing, if you eat slowly and chew your food very well, 1, it will help with digestion, it will help a lot with digestion, and 2, it'll help give your body the time to catch up and realize how hungry you are. So you won't necessarily have that overeating effect.
Fantastic, Sabah. You've got a fan club here going for you guys. Fantastic, guys. Thank you for the compliments. What a great session. Last question from me, Sabah, and then everybody else. Guys, I know Kinza, I know some of the other people had questions. We probably won't be able to take them because of time. Please do feel free to reach out to Sabah directly. I guess one question, Sabah, I read somewhere during our chat was people asking around this idea of dairy and dairy products. I've always wondered, dairy, Pakistan obviously, and people eating yogurt and milk and ruh afza and all that kind of stuff, the wonderful ruh afza that we grew up with. Just curious, dairy, good, not good?
Dairy is so complicated. Dairy is a very polarizing topic for some reason. And I'm a bit, so dairy has its place. Dairy has a lot of benefits. It has calcium, magnesium, vitamin B12. It has a lot of nutrition in it. There have been nothing unanimously supported by science to say that dairy can cause more inflammation, that dairy causes more mucus production. But there has been hints of that. So dairy has been quite controversial, especially recently. The way I see it with my clients, if they don't want dairy for whatever reason, I look at their diet and I just want to make sure that whatever you're losing when you take dairy out, you are not then harming your health, because dairy is a very big source of calcium, of protein, of fats, of magnesium, so different micronutrients in a lot of people's diets. So if it's something you remove, I want to make sure that you don't then end up hurting your health in any way. The other thing about dairy that could be the reason why it's so sort of demonized in some places is that many of us are actually lactose intolerant. And lactose intolerance can be a spectrum. To not be lactose intolerant is actually not the norm. The norm is to be somewhat intolerant. The question is, where is our tolerance threshold? And that's what many of us don't know.
Does it change with age as well? Does it change with age? Can you become lactose intolerant?
Yes, and you can become lactose intolerant even temporarily, even if you cut out milk completely. So if you're somebody who cut out milk completely and all of a sudden you want to put it back in your diet, there will be a period where you will be even more lactose intolerant. For most people, for most humans, we're meant to stop having lactose after those childhood weaning years when we stop drinking milk. The activity of the enzyme that breaks down lactose goes significantly down for the majority of us. Some people, it remains still active to some level, and that's what causes the difference in tolerance, how active that enzyme remains. For some people, it goes away completely. For some, it's only a little bit of activity, and for others, it's enough to maintain their diet of dairy.
Khalid, I'll make sure I get your question in. But Marvi asking about tea, chai, Pakistanis, chai. All the world can't stay away from chai. What do we do? Caffeine.
Oh, it's a lot of caffeine. What about tea? I know, and that's part of the tradition. Look, if you're hydrating well, maybe a little bit of tea just for the experience, like a cup of tea is fine. But if you're having trouble hydrating, no life without tea. I would not take your tea away. I'm not taking your jalebis away. I'm not taking your tea away. Just know that if you're having tea, there is caffeine, and caffeine makes you lose water. It's a bit of a diuretic. So you want to be mindful of that, and then know that you will likely have to replenish a bit better. And see how you feel too. This is something I really encourage. See how your body feels. If you have tea one night and the next night by the next iftar, you find that you're really thirsty, really dehydrated, more than usual, maybe limit the tea or bring it down a little bit, or up the water intake. Black coffee, yeah, that's the same thing. You have unless you have decaf, unless you take decaffeinated coffee, it will also act as a diuretic. The other thing about coffee I want to mention, for those of you who used to drink coffee in the morning to get your energy boost, you might have a bit of trouble in Ramadan because you won't be getting that caffeine in your receptors in the brain that's giving you that boost. So you'll have like a little bit of a withdrawal period. So
what about lemon, honey? Empty stomach, lemon and honey.
Sure.
Something to do with weight loss, lemon and honey? No.
If it is, it's very fad. nothing evidence-based. Otherwise, none of us would have any weight to lose.
Look, I'm conscious. I'm conscious about you. You know, you're busy. I'm conscious of how much time you've given us, guys. I'm getting privately as well many questions. Look, I want to thank you, Sabah, for all. Hey.
we have another guest.
Fantastic. We've got more than the numbers we see. Sabah, what a fantastic job you've done. Guys, I'm curious if I can just quickly get in the chat box. We've got some regular callers as well that we have, and obviously we keep changing the topic every week. We've done change, we've done emotional intelligence, we've done stress. I'm just curious if in the chat box, or if you'd like to email me, my email address there as well. What topic would you guys like us to cover in kind of our next call? If there's any particular topic around sleep hygiene, sleep management, emotional intelligence, compassion, empathy, you know, any of those kind of topics on wellness, you know, that'll be fantastic. If you guys want to let me know, email me, write in the chat box, and we'll definitely pick up our conversation around sleep, perhaps. Yeah, that seems to be an interesting conversation. We can pick that up, or any of the other topics that you're interested in. Maybe a work-life balance. We can talk about that as well. We'll get some industry experts to come and speak to us. Sabah Mirza, thank you so much for hanging out with us. Go ahead, Sabah, you want to say something?
Omar, if I may, there was a lot of good questions. I feel terrible that I missed. There's one about breastfeeding during Ramadan, and one about sports nutrition. So if anybody likes, I'm just putting my email address up there again. I'm sorry I didn't get to it. I would love to have more time with you, but do feel free to email me if I can help out. And stay safe and healthy, everyone.
Fantastic, Sabah. I'm just going to put your email address as well to all those people who are messaging me privately. Guys, thank you so much for tuning. Nobody wants to leave. They don't want to leave, Sabah. They want to hang out. Guys, thank you so much for thank you so much for taking the time. We will, again, every Thursdays, 11 a.m. seems like a good time for people to kind of come hang out with us. And in this time of, you know, solidarity with each other and kind of, you know, being alone at home, for many of us or being isolated, I think this is a great opportunity and avenue for us to kind of come hang out and talk to each other. Please stay in touch with us. Do subscribe to that YouTube channel, because I am going to put the slides up on the YouTube channel shortly. So it's the Gadlang YouTube channel. I'll just put it on here now again, and we will make sure that we stay in touch. So we'll see you guys then next week, next Thursday, 11 a.m. Until then, Ramadan Kareem, Ramzan Mubarak, and stay safe. And we hope to hear from you guys soon. Thank you so much, guys. Take care. Sabah, thank you so much again. I'll see you guys.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.